Hello, my name is Richard Corbett from emergebydesign.net, and welcome to my weekly astrological and human design transit forecast starting on Monday, April 28th, going through Sunday, May 4th. Well, as we start this week on Monday, we're coming off a pretty significant weekend. On Saturday, we had our third and final Mars opposite Pluto. This has been a long-term transit. We had the first Mars-Pluto opposition in early November. Then we had the second Mars-Pluto opposition in early January. And just this past Saturday on the 26th, we had the third and final Mars-Pluto opposition. This is the god of war facing off with the planet Pluto of death and rebirth and transformation. And while all that was happening, Mars had gone back into Cancer for a couple of months, had done its retrograde cycle. We also had a number of planets in the sign of Pisces activating our solar plexus, bringing some tremendous emotional volatility. So it's been quite a ride. And then we closed out the weekend with a new moon in Taurus. So as I start this transit report on Monday, there's a lot to reflect on. And by the end of this week, Mars will reach 6 degrees Leo and finally exit the shadow portion of the chart where he's been since early December when he went into retrograde. So again, it has been an incredibly emotional cycle of growth and development. We can all look back and see where we may have felt that, where we may have had altercations with romance or family, friends, wherever it took place. We have all been on a very significant journey of emotional growth and development. So we've made it through that. And so I feel like as we look forward and we dig into the charts I'm going to show you this week, we are in a bit of a transition. We're going to have a significant number of planets in Aries. We've got Venus and Neptune lining up in gate 25, the spirit of the higher self. And so we are making a bit of an astrological transition this week. We've still got some huge things happening this year. As I said before, this is one of the most significant astrological transformational years of our lifetime. So there's still a lot more to go. But I think it's wonderful if we can take a look at this new moon we had in Taurus yesterday and think about that fixed earth sign and how we can ground ourselves, find some tranquility in whatever resources we have to stabilize ourselves as we start, as the moon takes us on this new lunar cycle of emotional development. So let's take a look at the charts and we'll take it by day. As I'm doing that, just want to thank everyone who joins me for these transit reports. If you do get some support out of these, I always appreciate the likes or the subscribes. If you want to hit those, that really helps me grow the community, and I deeply appreciate that. Okay, let me get this going here. And here we go. Okay, here we're looking at the chart for Monday the 28th. All of these charts are run for noon Mountain Time, except for the lunations. We're going to have our first quarter moon on Sunday, and I'll indicate the time of that chart when we get to it. But otherwise, they're all for noon Mountain Time. And additionally, in the astrological wheel, I don't use house system for these reports because that would change depending on your location. So all of the astrological charts are set for 0 degrees Aries. Okay, so that new moon yesterday was in the sun and the moon were in gate 24 line 1. So as we look at the chart today, we have the sun in gate 24 line 2. This is in, let me get my annotator here. And I'll make some notes as we move through the chart here. Yeah, the sun in gate 24. This is called the gate of the return or rationalizing. It's found here in our Ajna Awareness Center. It's a potential individual awareness gate. It's called the gate of the return because it's part of the channel of the thinker. And it's about finding individual awareness. And so it goes over and over and over looking for that kernel of individual truth. And, that's something to keep in mind as we move through much of this week, having the sun energy here. This is stimulating our ability to think and conceptualize. We can get a little bit heady with the sun in this gate, but remember, it is the sign of Taurus, and thinking of that Taurian nature of grounding ourselves in Mother Gaia can be deeply stabilizing for us. That puts the Earth in its polarity in gate 44, which is in the sign of Scorpio. This is the gate of alertness. It's our instinctual, splenic alertness to be aware of how we can support our tribe. Where can we up-level health and wellness in regards to entrepreneurial items, our resources, again, we're thinking about. And so we'll have the sun and the earth here through a first portion of the week. As we look at the chart, I also want to point out one of the major aspects of the day is that the moon is also coming off that new moon, moving through Taurus still. We're going to have a moon-Uranus conjunction in gate 8. Now, that's a bit of an emotional shock there when we line these two planets up together, but it's happening in gate 8, the gate of individual contribution. So while we have come through this multi-month emotional, somewhat tumultuous time, I think part of the reflection or contemplations that can be helpful this week is, what have we learned from that? You know, what is my truth now? Now, of course, I'm always encouraging us when we're looking at transits to remember that it's all about following our personal authority, right? These are not predictive in nature, my reports. I just like to bring awareness to where are the planetary frequencies stimulating us each day. But here with this Moon-Uranus conjunction on Monday is a great opportunity to think about, what is my individual contribution? With all of the chaotic nature of the world right now, the charts keep showing us that much of where we can go for solace is finding how the events of the world are stimulating our ability to find our truth and authenticity within our personal creative inspiration. And I think that Moon-Uranus conjunction on Monday is part of that. We can also see that we do have Jupiter still traveling forward for the third time through gate 45. He's been here for months. And Mercury, also having moved back into Aries after doing its retrograde and back into Pisces, back into Aries, is now in gate 21, the gate of control. We may be hearing some communication regarding control out there, but it is bringing us the channel of the money line for a couple of days here, asking us, where are we finding or offering our support in regards to tribal resources? Sounds like a big collective question we're all looking at as we watch the news out there. And as I mentioned, we can see that Mars is past that third and final opposition to Pluto, moving through Leo at 4 degrees. So once he gets to 6 degrees in a few days, that's where he turned retrograde. So we'll be out of the shadow. So we may be still feeling the residual effects of Mars opposite Pluto that we've been experiencing, as I said, since November. We were thinking about issues of power, control, self-empowerment or disempowerment. With this opposition, there was a sense that we might be doing the blame or projection game. It's somebody else's fault, taking my power away, or we may have feeling sort of that victim mentality where they're out to get me. But it really was centering around this idea of transformation regarding our own sense of empowerment. And what does that mean for us due to all the emotional turmoil that we've been through? And so again, we still have, of course, the node, north node in gate 36, south node in gate 6. We're going to be having that for a number of weeks still in the future. So we're not out of the woods yet with that solar plexus energy. But again, I think we're moving into a new phase with it. So yeah, that's Monday there. Let's go ahead and move it into Tuesday. And as we go into Tuesday, the 29th, early in the morning on Tuesday, about 2 a.m., the moon will move into Gemini. Now, as the moon travels through Gemini, we get a lot of our throat gates activated. Starts out with gate 20, then 16, 35, 45, and gate 12. And so we may be feeling or hearing this emotional quality in our verbal expression. But while the moon is doing that, the moon will form a sextile to that Mars-Pluto opposition, sextile to Mars and trine to Pluto. So I think these 2.5 days with the moon moving through Gemini and all those throat gates, the moon is serving somewhat as a supportive intermediary between this dynamic. And this is where I think our emotional conversations with our loved ones that we are now maybe on the other end of a new cycle of development with, we may be able to reach some new ground. Chiron was very involved. I talked about that in some of my earlier transit reports regarding that opposition. And so again, I think we can really start to look back now. Where have we come over this Mars-Pluto cycle, and who are we now? What have we learned about our ability to regulate our nervous system, to have challenging, difficult conversations with loved ones and still maintain our truth, not get lost and get outside of ourselves, but to speak our voice of truth and stand in that sense of self-empowerment and authenticity, again, oriented towards our own creative expression. We're going to have Uranus in that gate 8 for really for the rest of this year. He spends about a year or so in each gate, and I think that's going to be another place we can always go to in our contemplations, in the sense that we're going through this wild astronomical year without a doubt, but who are we becoming as a result of that? Not becoming disempowered, but becoming empowered as a result of these circumstances that we're living through, following our personal authority as best we can and regulating our nervous system. So yeah, Moon traveling through Gemini there. Let me go ahead and move it into Wednesday. Now with Wednesday, I want to point out that Venus has just moved back into Aries, having done her retrograde. She was in Pisces and now coming back into Aries. So Venus in gate 25, which is where Neptune is. Now, I really like this conjunction we're going to be seeing this week between Venus and Neptune. Venus in Aries is the archetype of the feminine warrior, the yin power, and she's in gate 25, the spirit of the higher self. It's also about universal love, lining up with Neptune in Aries. And when I think of that, that's the archetype of the spiritual warrior in gate 25, the spirit of the higher self. So I think this Venus-Neptune conjunction, Venus being the planet of what we want, Neptune being our dreams, imaginations, creativity, all landing in this higher self gate. How are we experiencing our own sense of innocence? Or how are we able to regulate our body and relax into a state of innocence? Again, despite these chaotic times that we're living in. I think that's a really great contemplation for the week. It may be a little challenging because Mercury, also moving through Aries, as I mentioned, has moved into gate 51, the gate of shock. So we may be hearing some communication that may be very shocking and stimulating to us, but what it's bringing us between Mercury, Venus, and Neptune is what we call the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first. But it's much more than that. That little channel of initiation connecting our ego willpower center with the G center of our higher self, this is the initiation into our sense of higher self. So, again, we always want to follow authority. This may not be your initiation, but there will be initiation in the collective atmosphere. And what does that mean for us? But I'm really thinking about that Venus, Neptune, and gate 25. How do I withstand shock and still maintain personal love, self-love, and innocence amidst that? And so we'll see how that plays out. We're going to have that channel activated for the rest of this week, and I'll mention that again, of course, with this transit report. Also on Wednesday, the moon will be forming a conjunction with gate 45. Now, this may bring a little bit of the moon, optimism, Jupiter in gate 45, called the gate of gathering together. So we'll see how that plays out, how we're dealing with tribal support right now. Big question in the news, but we're getting a dose of, maybe we're getting somewhere. Maybe this transition, as all these planets enter Aries, we're in a new direction now. We'll see how this plays out, but we've got Venus, Neptune, Mercury, and Chiron all in the sign of Aries. So very different flavor than we had when we had all those planets in Pisces. So we'll just see where this heads for us. We're still part of a longer pattern. I feel this is sort of a intermediary transition. Later in the year, well, first off, let me say Saturn's going to move into Aries as well at the end of May. But later in the year, Saturn and Neptune will go back into Pisces. And so we're still getting two heavy hitter planets between Pisces, the world between here and the other world, the sign of evolution, dissolution, and then the sign of Aries. So it's sort of this back and forth. And so I think even into next year, until February, when both Neptune and Saturn will finally get into Aries for good, that'll be a really significant transition. So we're still going to be dealing with that later this year. But I think for right now, yeah, we're feeling this Aryan energy. Where am I moving right now? This sign is ruled by Mars. It's how we push our personal boundaries out into the world. And again, having that gate 25 with Venus and Neptune this week, really, really supportive contemplation on how we're still maintaining our self-love and innocence as we move into this new world that's happening. Let's go ahead and take it into Thursday. And on Thursday, the moon will move into her home sign of Cancer. And she's quite happy there. So this is a wonderful time to make those emotional connections with our friends and family and to dig down into what we sense as our own emotional security, this sense of self-confidence with emotional security. I mean, I'm saying all that because, again, what we've been through with our solar plexus activations when all those planets were in Pisces, we're in a sense, we're coming out of that right now. And I'm really encouraging all of us to look at where have we really sensed emotional growth and development and self-healing as a result of these past months we've gone through. We may be able to take this Aryan nature right now and move into a new space with this period of transition. As we go into Friday, we've got a little bit of angst here. The sun is still in gate 24, line 6, but the sun is forming a half square with Saturn on Friday. Now, half squares are very much like a square. They're a dynamic, frictional energy that's asking for some sort of development. Something's got to give in a square. And with the sun in that gate 24, again, it's giving us the life force energy to really ruminate and go over and return to see, have we found the truth? And it's in a half square to Saturn, still in gate 36, the gate of crisis. So we can see how our mental conceptualizing is not really liking what we're seeing in terms of the crisis and the collective out there, but yet that half square is asking us for growth. Right? Whenever there's two planets in a square, it's a dynamic conversation, but something's got to give. It's sort of like fire in that sense, that there's an alchemy here. Something can be created or changed or mutated. And so it is offering that energy right there. While that's happening, Mercury, still traveling in gate 51, is also going to be, for the rest of the week, moving into a conjunction with Chiron in gate 42, the gate of growth and evolution. And I think that message there is really speaking to this cycle that we're in here. How are we growing and developing, most importantly, internally? And as a result of that, how are we supporting our friends, family, and tribal network that we exist in? Let's go ahead and go to Saturday. And when we get to Saturday, the sun, still moving in Taurus, will move into gate 2. And here we have the sun in gate 2. This is also in the G center. It's called the gate of higher knowing. It's the most receptive gate in the body graph. It's also where the magnetic monopole resides, part of the human design history that we know about. But the idea being that it's this gate of the receptive, completely receptive, the most in. It's like water just pouring into our higher self. And that puts the Earth in the opposition where it always is, the polarity, in gate 1. This is the archetype of creative self-expression. All individual gates, those gate 2, gate 1, I already talked about. Uranus in gate 8, another individual gate of inspirational contribution. And we talked about Venus and Neptune in 25 and Mercury still traveling through gate 51. So as you look at that, that is quite a configuration there. And what I see here, if we think about Pluto in gate 41, offering us the truth and pressure of a new cycle of emotional growth and development that is fraught with friction and crisis, but it's an initiation. And that initiation can be into our most receptive idea of higher knowing, leading to personal inspiration and authenticity. So I kind of started my report with that message there that I'm seeing in the chart. And I think that's sort of what this week is asking us. How is the world, events, the crisis globally, as well as whatever friction we went through with our loved ones and emotional altercations, we're coming out the other end of that right now. All those planets moving from the Pisces and solar plexus gates, not all of them, but most of them, into Aries now. And so, yeah, we're able to move beyond that. As of Saturday here, Mars is at 6 degrees, so he's leaving his shadow. He turned retrograde December 5th at 6 degrees Leo, so he's now moving on from that very emotional, turbulent time. Now, while that happens, it's a pretty emotionally charged day. We're going to have a moon conjunct Mars in gate 31. Gate of influence, collective influence, or it's in collective circuitry. And so, yeah, I think we've got these challenges in the tribal circuitry, but it's asking us, what does that mean for us personally and our own sense of inspiration and truth and authenticity? And how can we influence the collective with that, with this newfound sense of emotional growth and development? How can it influence that? I say conflict with the tribe because while that moon Mars conjunction is happening, it's forming a half square with Jupiter in this tribal gate of leadership. And so we can sense here, we're in this very dynamic time, but I'm encouraging us all not to get lost in that collective noise, but use it as an opportunity or a signpost to go inward, to connect with our body's innate wisdom, to regulate our nervous system, and move forward with the self-empowered relationship with our personal process of authority, or authority center if you have an inner authority in your body graph. And while that's happening, that Mars Moon conjunction, it's trining Saturn. So again, it's what I was saying about, as a result of this crisis, this is actually the opportunity. The crisis is the invitation to move into a deeper sense of our own personal higher knowing. We know much more than we often give ourselves credit to. Our mind wants to do a little messing around with us. We can all get caught up in these head trips, but when we can go and connect with our authority and our body's innate wisdom, this is where the resource is. And I think the charts are really indicating that this week as we follow these archetypes that the planets are bringing us. Okay, we'll move into Sunday. We're going to have our first quarter moon of this lunar cycle. So this is the only chart I'm showing you where it's not noon Mountain Time. The charts you're looking at here are at 7:51 a.m. Mountain Time on Sunday, May 4th. That moon is still traveling through Leo, but is past the conjunction to Mars, but they're still, we'd still say they're within orb of a conjunction. And we're at a very dynamic time in every lunar cycle where the life force energy of the sun is squaring the lunar inner unconscious emotional world of the moon. So this typically can be a very good time to move something forward. Of course, following our personal authority, but the frequency is there to move something forward. And I would suggest that it has moving forward with our newfound sense of emotional growth and development. We could very likely be different people now, having gone through what we've been. We've learned a lot, and now it's time where we have the opportunity to contribute our personal inspiration and share that with the collective. Speaking of the collective, we have the moon at the first quarter moon is in gate 7, the role of the self in leadership called the gate of the army, but it's in the channel of the alpha, a design of leadership for good or bad. But we have the first quarter moon in gate 7 and Mars in gate 31. So again, I think this idea that what we do inwardly and personally by connecting with our sense of authenticity can influence and alter the collective that we live in. It's individual actions that done together make great movements. And so we are living amazing times. And so I just want to extend my appreciation for all of you that join me in these transits. I want to extend my support and recognition of the challenges we are all living through right now. But they are extraordinary times, but they're asking us, who am I as a result of this? So I think that Jupiterian sense of optimism can really place us in a sense that, yeah, these are extraordinary times, and they're calling on us to find ourselves in the midst of it. And in that sense, it's quite an adventure, I think. So we'll see where this all goes. But I wish you all a great first quarter moon when we get there on Sunday, as we move around the wheel in this next lunar cycle. And again, thanks for your likes and subscribes. I appreciate your support, and have a wonderful week. Bye for now.